So former Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz does not like the direction that Democrats are taking, basically following the lead of people like AOC, Bernie Sanders, and Elizabeth Warren. So now Schultz, who is a former Democrat, plans now to possibly run a 2020 campaign in order to stop the Democrats from themselves, as he says. I just want to stop the Democrats from embracing the far left. Now, during an interview with 60 Minutes, I'm not actually going to show you the video because, copyright, etc., demonetization, all that fun stuff. In this interview, he told host Scott Pelley that, quote, he's seriously considering running for president. Now, he's not running inside the Democratic Party. He's literally running as a, quote, centrist independent. He's not even a Democrat, guys. Oh, it's like the first time I get to say that. He's not even a Democrat. Now, asked why he is not running in the Democratic Party, he gave this answer. He said both parties are, quote, consistently not doing what's necessary on behalf of the American people. Well, on that sentiment, I think that you would actually find a lot of agreement. However, as far as Schultz is concerned, okay, well, what does he think is necessary to help America? And in order to find out what he thinks is necessary, we should probably ask him what he thinks is wrong. Well, luckily they did. Now, during the interview, he said that the main concern is the national debt. He said, quote, we are sitting today with approximately $21.5 trillion worth of debt, which is a reckless example not only of Republicans, but of Democrats as well. It's a reckless failure of their constitutional responsibility. So here we've got a fiscal deficit hawk. Oh boy. Now, he also said last year that, quote, the national debt is the greatest threat domestically to this country. National debt, made up fake numbers, right? That's what that is, right? That's what all budgets, that's what all money is. Let's be honest. It is literally imaginary because we have assigned it value, right? And we trust that it's going to be used to be able to get other things of value. And look, I encourage you guys to all listen to Pitchfork Economics with Nick Hanauer. That is a fantastic podcast. I've actually been learning quite a lot. So go listen to that because he kind of gets into detail why this, what the economic system is and what the problems are. But anyway, getting into this, so Schultz thinks the biggest problem with America is the national debt. The biggest threat. Not climate change. Climate change, we've only got 12 years to address it. And we have to address it in a very big way. That includes going carbon neutral, or we are basically screwed as a society. That is not as big of a threat as the national debt, according to Howard Schultz. Okay, man. All right, but I'm not done here. Now, he answered a couple of different answers. To be fair, on immigration, he says, well, of course, we have 11 million people that are here, and, people like the DACA recipients, for example, well, we should give them a chance. We should give them a chance to, earn their citizenship, things like that, right? Okay, yeah. But on healthcare, which is really, really important, it's kind of near and dear to my heart, maybe also kind of literally. But anyway, on healthcare, he says, every American deserves the right to have access to quality health care. Here we go again. Oh, no, you deserve the right to have access. Well, I already have the right to access a Lamborghini. Doesn't mean I'm going to be driving home in one anytime soon. So, because I don't have the money. Now, he says, addressing the people that don't have money to pay our exorbitant healthcare costs, he says, quote, what the Democrats are proposing is something that is false as the wall, and that is free health care for everyone, which the country cannot afford. I mean, We're $21.5 trillion in debt. We can't afford to give people health care. No, in fact, his policy proposal to tackle the national debt is to, number one, have a pro-growth economy. That sounds like a Republican talking point. And number two, cut entitlement spending. So basically, he's a Republican. Okay. But on his point about Medicare for All being more expensive, we just can't afford it, right? You realize that Medicare for All would actually cost less than our current system, right? How are you not able to afford stuff that is cheaper than what you're currently paying? I mean, according to the most conservative estimate, in a literal sense, Medicare for All will save the country $2 trillion over the next 10 years. Okay? And most studies actually have that number around $6 trillion. So Medicare for All saves money, and it also saves people's lives. But Howard Schultz is living in that Republican propaganda, right? So he has heard and internalized that Republican propaganda that, oh no, we can't afford things. We got to cut the deficit. We got to cut the debt. And we've got to cut entitlements to do it, and then have a pro-growth economy, which means, of course, lower taxes on people like him. Although he says, well, I think the Trump tax cuts were a little too much. I would have cut them just a little bit for corporations. And, of course, the Green New Deal. Oh, no, that's completely unaffordable. We can't do that. We should go with go back to the Paris Climate Agreement. Now, look. The Paris Climate Agreement, Donald Trump was an idiot for pulling out. And I agree with Schultz on that, right? He says, oh, it was pretty stupid for us to pull out of the Paris Climate Agreement. But you have to also understand that the Paris Climate Agreement is not enough. It's not enough to be able to curb the worst of climate change. No, what we need is something very, very bold. Something incredible and transformative. Like a Green New Deal, which will not only turn our economy away from fossil fuels onto alternative energy sources, but also create tens of millions of jobs in the process and create economic growth. And yes, it will take spending, and yes, it will take investment. And guess what? AOC has actually proposed a way to pay for it that doesn't increase the deficit. How? By taxing people like Howard Schultz 70% over anything made over $10 million. Oh, radical. Remember, Howard Schultz is worth about $3 billion. So, yeah, he would get taxed at quite a bit. But it would go to pay for a Green New Deal. But here's the thing, right? So, he doesn't like that. He doesn't want to pay a little bit more or a lot more in taxes. Keep it real. This is why he's jumping into the race. Because he sees these politicians like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders thinking, Bernie Sanders hasn't jumped in yet, but Elizabeth Warren has, talking about, oh my God, they're going to tax the rich. They're going to tax the rich and tax corporations. Oh, no, we can't have that. No, we can't do that. I'm going to jump in and I'm going to be a spoiler. So that's what's going on here. In fact, on Elizabeth Warren, he had some words for her. He said on Tuesday's morning edition of NPR that Warren's plan for a 2% annual tax on Americans whose net worth exceeds $50 billion is, quote, ridiculous. So, oh man, you want to tax the rich people over $50 billion? Ridiculous. Ridiculous. Oh, we can't have that. Can't have that. Don't touch my money. In fact, he says, quote, she knows for a fact that it's never going to be passed. I can't wait for President Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren, along with a bunch of AOC-inspired progressives, passes a wealth tax or a 70% tax, marginal tax rate on the rich, or both, which would be fantastic. You know what would happen to Howard Schultz? His head would explode. Schultz also went after Kamala Harris. Now, Kamala Harris, in her recent town hall on CNN, was unequivocal on Medicare for All. She said, we must have a Medicare for All system. Now, great. Not only that, but AOC was also attacked by Howard Schultz by being, and he said that she was, quote, misinformed and that her policy ideas were, quote, un-American. Oh, really? Un-American. You know those policy proposals that you're calling un-American? It turns out most Americans support them. 70% approval for Medicare for all. Not only that, but you have over 70% approval for free college and even a Green New Deal. Not only that, but of course, marginal tax rates of 70% for anyone making a dollar over $10 million is something that America used to do. In fact, that marginal tax rate for the very top 1%, for the richest, 0.1%, for the richest Americans was up to at least 90% for the wealthy. Anything made over $2 million was taxed at 90% during Republican presidencies. So please, tell me how un-American that is. You don't know the history because you have been inundated with the propaganda and you believe it yourself. This is gross, right? Absolutely gross. And look, here's what he's doing, right? He's considering being a spoiler and possibly helping Donald Trump win, or maybe not, because he doesn't want his taxes to go up. Period. That's what this is about, right? And it's gross. And it's the naked greed of these guys who have bought and internalized this conservative propaganda that is actually damaging to this country. That's what's un-American. And if you're wondering, as I said before, what he would do if he got elected, which is very unlikely, he, as I said before, would pay off the debt by cutting entitlements, cutting your Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Because everyone wants an out-of-touch billionaire to cut their Social Security in service to the debt. Now, sit down, Howard. Sit down. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know how I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent, progressive media.